So, a new Evil Dead movie, and we didn't have to wait another decade for it to be released. Another up-and-coming horror director at the helm of the movie, which has another vision, another take at the material. Once again, not that much comedy, but with some comedy in it, but also pretty brutal and with some deeper themes. Yesterday I have watched the movie in the cinemas like the last two movies. I fortunately could watch them in the cinemas, even though the experience was again quite annoying. Thanks to some that we were talking almost a complete movie through, which, like, why don't you just go home? What the hell can you even talk about for about 2 hours almost without a break? So that was annoying, but let's stop wasting time and talk about the movie itself. So it begins with Joseph, a young man starting a tape recorder, this time not the one by Professor Nobi, but another professor, who is his grandpa. Meanwhile, Jessica, the girl from the prologue and epilogue of Evil Dead Rise, is attacking two guys on a fishing trip, foreshadowing the relationship drama that will be the focus of this part, as one of the guys is constantly being called on his phone by his girlfriend. The buddies get killed and Jessica walks the streets only to get run over by a car. We then go back in time to see a party. It's Joseph's birthday and his brother and his brother's girlfriend are giving him an expensive pen for his birthday. But soon they argue, as they often do, and Joseph's brother Will is driving off drunk. As it turns out, he runs over Jessica and her decapitated head is taunting and threatening his family, while his car is burning down. We then go forward to Will's funeral. The close family is at the funeral home and is disturbed a couple of times by a nearby construction site. But this will be the last of their problems, because the father goes to visit the coffin alone one last time, before his son is cremated. But of course, Will is already possessed and attacks the father and the mortician. We also see there is tension inside the dysfunctional family, and most of all, Will's wife will get the grunt of it. Will's mother outright dislikes her. The father is at first cold and distant. Will's brother and his girlfriend are at least friendly, and grandma's crazy, often mistaking where she is due to her dementia. But once everyone sits down for dinner, the possessed father eventually snaps and kills the dog and starts attacking his family. As it turns out, the Deadites are this time here for a reason, other than just to torment the living. They also want the most effective weapon against them, the Kandarian dagger. So the Deadites trick the living, attack the living, kill the living and turn them into Deadites, one by one. Evil Dead Burn takes a bit to get starting. At first the beginning is pretty convoluted. We have Jessica, we have Joseph, we have the buddies on the fishing trip, we have a car crash, then we go back in time to a party and to see the conflict between Will and his wife. Then we see the car crash again, going back to a point that we already saw a couple of minutes ago. And after that we have to go through a long stretch until the Deadites attack. To be honest, I thought it might turn out to be a bit dull, but once the attacks begin, it does actually get more interesting and tense. It does pay off that we spend some time with these characters. We get some hints about what is going on with them, some more direct and clearly, like Joseph being unable to complete his goals and being seen as an underachiever, not just by others, but also by himself. The mother destroying the family by trying to keep them together no matter what. This will of course also come up later when the living fight the Deadites. And it's nice. Sure, for some it might be too on the nose, but I liked it. And I think it switched a couple of things up for an Evil Dead movie. The visual style is also quite nice, and we see what seems to be snow, but as the movie goes on it looks more and more like ash. There are also some pretty nice shots, like one longer scene in which the main character, which is Will's wife Alice, is crawling over the ground while we see Will's father attack the family over and over again and destroy the old house in which they are, with some nice moments and all in one shot. That's pretty cool. We also get a callback to the other films, with Will's father levitating over the ground in this creepy way. There are a couple of subtle callbacks to earlier entries though, and I like them as well, and how they also sometimes didn't do the obvious thing, so it stays kind of fresh. But of course they try to expand the lore of these movies and connect them. They referenced the Cabin Massacre in the 80s, but they mentioned 1983, if I recall correctly, so I'm not sure if they meant the first one, which was released in 81. But we also got the connection to Rise and the Kandarian dagger, even though it looks different in this part. Not sure if there are maybe different kinds of daggers like there are different kinds of books, but it's fine I think. What is also fine is the gore. Evil Dead needs not just some mean deadites and demons, but also splatter and gore, and we get some here. It's not on the level of the remake, but I would say it's more bloody than Rise. We also have some wounds, attacks and accidents that are just mean. Like this one scene with an open dishwasher with the forks and knives sticking out and someone falling on it, a pen being rammed into an ear, several stabbings and the use of the hedge trimmer to a face. We also get someone cutting off her leg, a head being smashed in, and so on. It's also not quite as cartoonish as Evil Dead Rise was at times, but it's also not as well done as the remake, which had a lot of practical effects, or at least a good mix or a blend of practical effects and CGI effects. But this is overall satisfying. Only the end is again a CGI fest with a computer effect as the final enemy, which was disappointing. And the fight itself didn't feel that special after all the mayhem in the house, but I have to say I overall liked the film. Probably a bit too long, but the second half was quite good. The comedy elements were often feeling a bit out of place, but at some point they just stop with the comedy for the most part and are more serious, which I appreciated. And at the very least I have to say there was one pretty well done joke. At least I had to chuckle. I just didn't like the James Gunn style of comedy they tried here, which didn't work that well in the movie. What I mean by that, they have something serious or violent happening, something dramatic or brutal, and then there is a joke. But the jokes didn't quite land. The acting is decent. How the Deadites turn here is more uneven than in the other movies, I would say, but none of the Evil Deads really stick to any kind of rules, so I guess it's fine. Only the very final post-credit scene got me raise my eyebrow, as I wondered how that would happen, how that even worked in the logic of the Evil Dead franchise, and how Deadites usually work. Also another thing that was a bit underwhelming, they actually got an animal Deadite here, but they hardly use it, which seems like pretty wasted potential. I mean, a dead-eyed dog? That's a pretty nice idea, but they hardly do anything with it. Overall, Evil Dead Burn was a nice surprise. After I rewatched the series last year and thought that Rise was the weakest part but still a good movie, I was hoping that this one would hold up to the other Evil Deads. And I would say it kind of does. The old trilogy and the show remain great, but these new movies are also decent. And each one feels different, and I'm looking forward to the next movie and hope this one makes a lot of money so they keep making them. And hopefully use more practical effects in the next ones, and I will give Evil Dead Burn an 8 out of 10. If you want to see what I think of the other Evil Dead movies, you can check out my retrospective on the series. Part 1 is already out, and probably part 2 will be out soon-ish. I might also take a look at the games at some point. See you in the next one.
William, my sweet boy.